pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so the first item on the agenda tonight is, I guess we could,
Make a motion open the meeting.
I'll second it. I'll second it. Okay, so, we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of minutes, this is the first item on our agenda, from February 4th. Those were circulated a little bit earlier. Has everybody had a chance to read those and see them?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Could we get a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Jim seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great, so there's no,
That was the, you gotta do the 18th as well. Yeah, you might as well.
oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I mean, I wasn't here, but.
I'm sorry, the 18th, I'm sorry. Any comments on the 18th as well?
No,
No, okay, great.
I wasn't present. I'll motion to approve the
Stand
February
motion.
18th.
I'll second. There we go. Second. All in favor?
Aye. Abstention from James.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for picking that up, James. There are no possible extensions or abandonments of applications. So we move right into the public hearing phase of the meeting. The first item is 349 Maple Avenue. The applicant is appealing a notice of violation issued on April 27, 2023 for unpermitted use. Applicant is requesting an interpretation that the permitted or special permit proposal can occur. The applicant will also seek an area variance to reduce the minimum lot from 3 or 5 acres to 2.8 acres if deemed necessary.
A motion to open the public hearing.
Do we have a motion to open that public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
And are there any representatives from the applicant?
All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Aye.
There you go. Yeah, go
Are
ahead.
any representatives from the applicant here?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, you
Come to your-
kind of know the drill, but so just introduce yourself on the record, and then we'll see if the board has any follow-up questions, and we'll open up to the general public.
I would say it's speaking to the mic. I'm John Capello with J&G Law, and I also have with me Mike Sandor. Mike is the project engineer, and we're here tonight. We've been back and forth with the board over the course of several months regarding property located at 349 Maple Avenue. Our client, Tom Walsifer, Renew LLC, purchased the facility in 2021 from City Wireworks. It's located on about 2.8 acre parcels. It's really kind of just a bare bones of a structure. Has been used for a variety of different types of commercial uses, repair shops, facilities. What Mr. Walsifer has been using and is seeking to now obtain the official approvals is to use the property for his trucking and delivery operation. Mr. Walsifer currently has 6 vehicles on the site, and he uses those. Drivers come to the site, they go pick up bakery products right now, is what he's doing, and deliver them to wherever their deliveries go, and then bring the vehicles back. So there's no storage at the facility, and he also repairs the vehicles. Mr. Leva classified the facility, since the existing building is over, I believe, 3,000 square feet. It's listed as a truck terminal, which is special permit use in the zoning district, but it requires a minimum lot size of 5 acres due to the size of the building. As we stated at the last meeting, however, Mr. Walsifer has 2.8 acres, and what he's willing to do, if he had 5 acres, he could have maybe 30 or 40 trucks on the site. He's willing to say is limited to a maximum of 8 vehicles on a 2.8 acre site, which we believe can be handled, and that's what Mike is here if the board has any questions on the site very easily. Mike is in the process of going before the planning board because the property is technically located within a floodplain. Mike has done an analysis and is before the planning board for a floodplain development permit to demonstrate that the property, because we're not building anything new or disturbing any additional land. It's really what has existed there since the 1960s, which is still there without big flood, damage during all the events we've had during that time. But Mike is handling that at the planning board. So really what we're here tonight is to ask the board to consider granting an area variance to reduce the lot size from minimum required of 5 to 2.8, conditioned upon the fact that we would limit the number of vehicles. So it will be the existing building that has been on the site since 1960, and likely the 6 vehicles. I'm asking for 8 just to give a little bit of leeway for Mr. Walsfer if he ever, acquires a new vehicle. He has no plans to, but we just wanted to accommodate that. So we believe that there will be no undesirable change to the neighborhood because what is there, has been there in one form or another for several decades. The benefit could be achieved by acquiring more land potentially, but then that would increase the number of trucks, so it wouldn't really make the situation any better. It was just technically complied. The size of the area variance, numerically, I can't deny that going from 5 to 2.8 acres to 2.8 acres is not substantial, but we believe that given the limitation on the number of vehicles there, it would be, it would mitigate the impacts of the smaller lot, because once again, if we had 5 acres, you could have 40, there's no limit on the trucks, so we would be limiting the trucks. As far as the adverse physical or environmental impact, once again, nothing is changing that has not been there for decades. Different forms, once it was electrical equipment was being stored there and vehicles were being repaired and delivered. So it's slightly different, but physically the appearance of the lot and the area will not change at all. And as far as the self-created hardship, technically you're implied with knowledge of zoning, but I would say that the building was there and it was a similar use, and the applicant just believed he could continue to use it for a similar use, but for the lot size, he could. It is a permitted use in the zoning district. It's just the size of the lot that is that we're here looking for relief from.
Don, may I allow the board to inquire if they, are you done? Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, is the neighboring property available for him to purchase in the event of having that ability to increase that lot size?
If he wanted to change it in and have a number of vehicles, he could potentially obtain that lot. I don't know if that would make it to 5 acres, but it would.
Is it currently available for sale?
I believe it's an entity that, that it's related, but it's vacant and it's not entirely developable.
Okay. And is the size of the land the only thing from preventing him from increasing his business? You mentioned that there could be 40 trucks on that lot.
It is the size, yes. It's I don't want, when I say 40, I'm being very, he'd have to go to the planning board for a site plan, so could 40 fit? But pursuant to your code, there's no minimum on or maximum on the number of vehicles. It's just the lot size for a trucking terminal. So technically, if you have 5 acres, there's no limit on the number of vehicles. The limitation is on this. In fact, if the building were under, I believe, 3,000 square feet, he would only need 3 acres. But the building exists. So it's not like, you probably wouldn't need all the building because he just repairs the vehicles in there, it really needs the areas for parking. So it's the size of the building that kicks it up to a 5-acre requirement, when for a trucking terminal, really, I mean, it seemed to me be logical, it would be the number of vehicles on the site, which would increase the intensity of use rather than the size of the building. So it's the size of the building being over 3, what is it, Mike? You have it on.
I think 3,200 square feet.
It's 3,200 square feet, and I think it's over 1,500 square feet is what kicks it up from 3 acres to 5 acres.
And was the business that he purchased, was it a trucking
It
company?
was an electrical, they had trucks on the facility and did repair trucks, but it was wiring, electrical wiring, City Works or City Wire, I believe at that time. And before that, there's a history going back with prior building inspectors of vehicle repair shop being located there.
When you said the property next door was an associated entity, what does that mean?
It is owned by an entity that, well, it says Renew, it's actually owned by Renew. It is owned by the applicant, but it's, it really is not used for any part of this use, and, you know, to make it 5 acres would really not benefit because of the use and the, you know, and the character of that lot. So at that point, we're just looking to limit the number of uses on this vehicles while he determines what he wants to do and plan for the future and for his next generation, because he may take 0.2 acres, use this for something that's, you know, there are several uses permitted in the zoning district that only require 3 acres or less that he might want to consider on this property. Once again, it's the size of the building and the trucks that regulate this. So at this time, he would rather keep that character, get this legitimized, and then determine in the future how to best utilize the land.
So, John, hypothetically, he could slice off part of his land, neighboring land, and then combine into the one lot, accomplish the goal, but then there might not be a limitation in the number of trucks that he could have on that property. Is that
Right, and it would probably impede the proper planning of how to best use these 2 lots. If it was 3 acres, taking 0.2 acres out of it, but then you would be combining this for a big truck facility, which is probably not warranted for that area and probably not desired to have a larger trucking facility for that area, given its, you know, agricultural character. So
I guess my one question would be, what would prevent him from still doing that, even with this variance, aside from the commitment?
we would limit the condition to no more than 8 vehicles on the site.
And then maybe, would we be open to adding a condition that we wouldn't slice off a piece and do that in the future? I don't know if we can make that.
I mean, in the future, he'll look, this may not be used for a trucking facility, it may be used for a farmer's market, or, you know, or something, you know.
I think with something with that, where it doesn't run with the land, so if you merge those 2 properties, the variance would go away, and you would have to.
Whatever the zoning
be back and
requires,
whatever. So we can add an additional condition
that
that it
sounds
doesn't,
good.
that they change the benefit of the bargain, that it goes away. So, any other questions from the dais? Okay. So, John, if I could just have you, well, I'm going to have you relocate, and if the public wants to come up.
Oh, sure.
So, members of the public, certainly, if you have any questions for the applicant or any commentary, I ask you to just come up to the podium, state your name, try to limit your commentary to 3 minutes, since you may want some back and forth. Obviously, this will discuss. You want to show them how it's done, Chris? That would be great. That's why we have Mr. Healy here.
Good evening, my name's Chris Healy. I'm a resident in the town of Goshen. Just for the record, I do not know the applicant personally or professionally. I have no dog in the fight, if you will. I do live just 2 miles down the road, just off of Maple Avenue. Having grown up in Goshen my entire life, if I had to quantify or qualify this property, I would call this a legacy property. I have seen this property change throughout the years. I remember there being farm trucks there, hay wagons. I've seen tractor trailers, and of course the wire company. I was here a month ago when this applicant first spoke to this panel. And at the time, I remember thinking, I really hate variances, and I think everybody here knows that I do. In this particular instance, isn't this exactly what a variance is for? This property is incongruent because the size of the building doesn't match the acreage of the property. Going back to the 1960s, that is of no fault of the applicant. Also, he's offering to limit the size of the use of the property. As such, if you were looking for input from somebody from the public who has no reason to say otherwise, I'd really like to see this applicant get his variance, use his property, pay his taxes. Hear, hear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Does anybody else wish to address either the applicant or the board or both? Okay. So there is one other group that needs to be heard from. As Mr. Capello is aware and the board is aware, the county has a right to chime in by way of General Municipal Law 239. They have the procedure to getting that was completed on our end. They have a time frame to get that commentary back to us, which has not expired. Sometimes they beat the clock. That's the gamble you take with the 30 days. So my suggestion to the group, based on the fact that you don't have that, you can't close the public hearing, nor can you then go through the process of 5 factors and voting. My suggestion, talking to Grace and scheduling, would be to adjourn or continue, but adjourn this public hearing to April 1st, at which time, unless there's some changes or additional questions or something from the county moves the needle, I think at that point you'd be in a position to make a vote on whether you wish to approve the variance requested. Let's see, anybody have any commentary on that? No. How are we looking for numbers on April 1st? I know we're down Mr. Farfalla until May, but that's why we have additional members. So everybody's absent something coming up, no scheduled?
Yeah, no, nothing scheduled
Okay.
in the year.
Well, I just, I want to make sure we're bringing the public back out and the applicant that we're good. So, John, either Grace or myself will let you know when the email comes in, all right? Forward it over and, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you do.
All right, so do we have a motion to continue the public hearing until April 1st?
So moved.
At 7:30 p.m. or 10 thereafter it can be heard.
Seconded by James. Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen.
I'd like to take this from one of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
See you.
I thought we were going to the county, they're slacking.
I don't know, slacking, it's just, maybe there's a lot of buildings.
Businesses.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. I think it's growing.
Thank you for the land.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
So the next item is Northern Bear, Gordon Enterprises, applicant requesting an area variance for relief of
Can you just speak up? Sorry, it's being recorded, so I just want to make sure that gets in there, please.
Applicant is requesting an area variance for relief of the existing parking stalls along the front of the building.
Very good. Okay,
Good evening, my name is Vince Peterzak, here tonight for Northern Bear. I'm here with the owners, Dan and Rory Waslowski. The project was before the planning board in December for a public hearing, which was closed, nobody showed up. In 2011.
I'm sorry, that public hearing was before the planning board, not here.
Correct. Yes, that was in December. In 2011, the owners went before the planning board and received approval for the 2 rental units. They did the improvements under the witness of the town, but the plan that we presented before you never got signed by the planning board. In 1983, there was a site plan which we presented to the board that had the parking in front of the building. When they purchased the building, there was parking in front of the building and has been when the pet store was there for over 30 years. A hair salon moved in to the 2 rental units approximately 10 years ago. And they just moved out, and that's when it was determined that those plans, when new people were coming to rent, checking at the building department, had never been signed. So, again, we're not proposing anything. This facility has been this way for more than a dozen years, and the speed limit in front of the facility is 55 miles an hour. So when you're leaving the village, there's a curve to the right as you're going past the facility, and as you're speeding up to 55, you're going so fast that you don't have enough time to turn and actually look at the facility. Even when you're coming down into the village, if you're doing 55, you really don't have time to take your eyes off the road because there is a slight curve. And that's why we're here tonight, because we came back to the planning board to get reapproval, and they can't give us the approval because of the existing parking under the new zoning that's in front of the building.
Vince, can I just chime in real quick? Is
Yes.
everybody on the dais in receipt of a memorandum from our town engineer? I think at your request. I was not present at that meeting. Did you request to get a kind of a calculation?
I wanted to know.
Calculation of the impervious?
Yes.
Okay.
And that,
There's a memo that was provided March 4th, 2025. Has everybody had an opportunity to review that, just as a part of the, okay.
The pavement does stop. It does not go around the rear of the building. The rear of the building is gravel. And the impervious areas are substantially lower than what is allowed in that zone.
That's reiterated. You've seen Sean's memo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very quick summation of it, and it certainly, I can, if everybody's got it, or I can.
When I read it, I wasn't clear, because at the end of it, he says that impervious becomes 32.32, which leaves 70% not totally impervious. So
Yes,
I
it's the
couldn't
negative
follow
six.
his mathematics here. I don't understand what he's saying. Do you read this one?
I did. Let me see. I'm not sure what you said now.
I'll read it into the record for the time being, this portion of it, okay? It says you calculated the impervious surfaces associated with the existing paved parking area and building to be 28,309 square feet, and the existing concrete pad to be 3,660 square feet, which results in an impervious surface coverage of 20.5%. The existing gravel area and landscape material storage area meet the code definition for impervious surface. We calculate these impervious surfaces to be 18,441 square feet, which results in an impervious surface coverage of 32.32%, which is less than the maximum permitted by code. So,
Well, he's basically saying you have to have 30% impervious, and they've got 32 and 32 impervious.
what still would require our determination of, so that's giving you additional information. I'm gonna note ahead of time that, that we don't have the
It's a non-issue, right?
I'm sorry?
It's a non-issue, right? We're way below, they're way
Yeah.
below.
No, it's.
No,
it's-
not
yeah.
at all. The impervious is 32, right? It should be 30,
It's-
70.
No,
70 is what it should be.
no, 70 is what it could be.
Could be,
Yes.
yes.
And we're at 32.
It's less than the,
Max.
it's below the max that you can have is 70.
Impervious surface
Trina,
is 32.32.
the max you can have is 70.
We understand.
We're both,
Yeah.
okay.
Or 71, should be impervious or pervious, whatever the proper range.
Impervious.
They're okay.
Yeah.
They're below what if you're max and you're above that, then
Okay.
it would need, it would
Okay,
be
I was
required to
reading it- I was
vary.
reading it the other way around.
If you want to translate, I'm a lawyer, all right? So you're the engineer guy, all right?
Yeah, we're allowed to go up to 70%.
Yes, in that particular zone.
We're less
right,
than
in that
half,
zone.
correct.
Yeah.
In addition, we did receive an email from New York State DOT, which the planning board received also, that they have no comments or responses.
Trina, at the top of the memo, it
Yeah.
states maximum impervious surface coverage permitted in the
Yep.
HC is 70%.
Yep.
It feels like a negative, double negatives, but it's okay.
Can you just backtrack 2 seconds? What did the, who didn't have a comment?
The
Department of
DOT. Yep.
And then what was that in like response to, an inquiry for?
From the planning board.
Comment on the,
Because it's on the state highway.
If I recall, there were some discrepancies too about the side parking spaces. Some previous plans had fewer, yet this one has 12. I'm not finding my map right now.
I got the old one.
Yeah, what was approved, even though it wasn't, whether or not. Yeah, there were 10 up here. I mean, the approved one from, this is 82, 83, and this has 12 spaces. So I think there was some discrepancy there as well that I think we were asking about.
Vince, when would the parking be, that's the existing parking, that's been there through the history of that property, correct?
40 years.
I
Yeah, the
don't
pet
think
store's
it's
been
right.
there over 30 years, and it's had the parking in front the whole time. When the applicant came in and did the improvements, and bought the property, it had parking in front of the store.
See, Tom, some of the members on the board, when we were discussing the property over by 6.5 station, the proposed hotel is, right? You recall that? That had similar, remember, front parking, changed the impervious surface area coverage, so just as a refresher on it, we've kind of covered some of these before. All right, anybody else have questions from the dais as it relates to either that I can help you with or Mr. Petrolak?
I have some questions, but I think it may fall to Frank, who's not
Yeah.
going to be here tonight.
Okay, what area are we discussing?
Well, just in general, I think there was the approved plan that was never actually signed or whatever, going back to that, but there were conditions on that plan that, it's my understanding, were not necessarily met.
Okay.
And I don't know I don't know the details on that.
All
I
right,
was hoping
so-
Frank could enlighten us.
Why don't we,
If that's true, that may not be true, I want to just ask that question.
I understand that, and to be clear, to take a little bit of the, maybe the pressure off whether we're voting or not, we don't have a 239 from the county. So there is, I don't want to delay the applicant any further than necessary, but you have the right to ask that question. Just ask that you put it in written form, CC me on it with Frank, okay? So we can get an answer back, that way it's back to you in an appropriate time, so if we wind up adjourning this, which it looks like we would have to, that we have that answer, or that applicant has an opportunity to address the same situation in the event that the material coming back is potentially unfavorable. So you have an opportunity to address that before we come back here,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
One of the items in that resolution of approval was the stockpiling of the wood that was being used for firewood, being cut up for firewood. That was supposed to be removed from the site. And that's going to be a condition of the new approval from the planning board also.
I did happen to take a trip back there, so obviously it's not removed.
Correct. He's cutting it up now, and he's not going to be bringing any more in.
Okay.
Anybody else on the, while the applicant is present? Okay. Anything further you want to add? Just, you want to take one step to the left, allow anybody from the public? I know that some of the folks from the business are here. If they care to say anything, you're more than welcome. Just come on up to the podium, state your name, try to limit the comments to somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 minutes. If not, there'll be another opportunity, so. Good evening.
Hi, I've already met you guys. Lori Wastowski, owner of Northern Bear Pet Food. So we're not finishing this tonight because Frank's not here, you said?
No,
No.
I didn't, I'll adjust this one. I didn't, that was not what was said. The 239 from the county was not returned, they have a right to have 30 days and chime in on this. We did not get it back from them, so we cannot close the public hearing, and thus we cannot proceed to a vote.
Okay. Is there a way for me to extradite that so I can get it? For the
I
next
would,
time?
the plan would be, no, not for,
No.
I mean, if you can call them, I suppose. If 30 days goes by and they don't, we're pretty close to that. Because
Okay.
it goes out, this was scheduled 29 days ago.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, if you want to be on the public hearing list 30 days out, the risk is that, or 29 days out, that they don't get it. I think it was 28 days, but.
Says it's 80% complete, so I'm
Okay.
sure I'll get it back any day.
There's a like meter that you can look at from the way they computerize it and tells us how far along they are. We've been told 80%. So it would require us to keep the public hearing open. I was proposing that it go to the April 1st date, which, absent some additional materials coming in, we would be able to move forward on that day, good, bad, or indifferent. But I understand, you know, time is money, and respectfully, we got to get the decision right. We got to have all the information, otherwise it costs more money if we don't do that. So I can understand it from your perspective, frustration, but we're moving it along, all right, the best we can, all right?
So April 1st?
April 1st, well, I gotta wait till the board decides that, but I would say I feel pretty confident that's where it's heading in about 3 minutes, unless
Okay.
there's more time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any commentary? Besides the face that Ozzy just made at me. That's not in the comments. Okay, so before we close it out or adjourn it, Vince, you want to say anything else, or?
No, I think
All
pretty
right.
much all set.
All right, I appreciate y'all being here. Tom, you know.
So do we have a motion to adjourn this till April 1st?
Make a motion to adjourn till April 1st. Seconded.
All in favor?
So, as soon as that 239 comes back, it will get to you guys as well to you, all right? And then we'll talk before the 1st just to see where the loop is at, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you all.
Okay, so the next item for discussion.
You want to just hang for 1 sec, just so they can clear out a little noise issue, if you don't mind, Tom?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
The next item for discussion is 6 Gumwood Drive, Clarence Estates. Applicant seeks an area variance for development within the floodplain and ponding area overlay district, stream corridor and reservoir watershed overlay district, aquifer overlay district, and also 8 Gumwood Drive, which is seeking the same.
May I hop in?
Yes.
Okay, so I wasn't present at the initial presentation, but I've had an opportunity to speak with council, speak with the building department, do my own work on this, and applicant, in our discussions, which direction we're going to go, applicant, unless something's changed, was seeking to proceed, correct?
Yes.
So, I think you guys fleshed out, you have a decent idea what this is about. Does anybody have any things that need cleared up before we decide whether we're gonna go to a public hearing on it? For any additional questions that have developed since?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm not at all clear on this conversation about what we're able to act on and what we're not able to act on.
Sure.
And why it's come to us if we're not able to act on it, or if we are able to act, I don't,
I
that's
would
not
say
at all entirely.
acting on it, my opinion, is that the action, and I've expressed this to applicant, and I have no, they're inquiring of me, but I think that procedurally, the applicant has a right to have a seat at the table, so to speak, for lack of a better term. I think if you grant the variances, unless applicant is able to convince myself or you otherwise, I would say to you it's akin to a legislative action, and that is not the designation of this board. You're a quasi-judicial board, and I think it would create a situation where it would nullify that section of the code, and that would be a precedent that would open the floodgates, if you will. No pun. Actually, pun wasn't.
Yeah, right there.
Thanks, Tringham. That was for you, buddy. But That said, you know, applicants got a fair right to appear before this board procedurally based on their advocacy. I agree that they can be here. It's not a barred appearance here, right? But reading the tea leaves that are before me currently, that's why you were given that impression about being unable to act. I believe you can act. I believe that act would be counter to what the design of the board is and would create a precedent that would literally nullify a pretty significant section of code. However, I don't expect the applicant to agree with that opinion, so I more than afford you to write. Is that a fair summation of
That's
our?
a fair summation. Do you want me to explain my side a little bit?
And only if it agrees with me. No. No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's why you're here.
Okay,
So,
that's fine. That's
yeah.
fine. So
And let it marinate, and then, you know,
Sure,
'cause it's not going to be
sure.
decided tonight, as you know.
exactly,
So.
exactly. Yes, yes.
Before we proceed with
Yeah.
that, is that, we're in that phase where we can still just,
Oh yeah, this is an informational continuation of a presentation. Is that
Yes.
we're not? It's
I
like
just wanted to understand that.
yeah,
we're
there's
all
only
saying-
a couple things you could be, right? It's either public hearing or it's still in that presentation. So you absolutely can listen, inquire, and if new information is presented to me through that inquiry or presentation, I'll put it back in the hopper. But I gave you what my thoughts are thus far, and I think they're consistent with where our town engineer is on it, and even the planning board attorney as well.
Understood.
Okay.
Thanks.
Again, I do definitely want to proceed to the public
Yeah.
hearing. You know, we made the application. I think, you know, we have the board has the obligation to hear it. And
I concur with that.
I agree
so
with
far.
that part of your statement.
Yeah, I know,
agree
you're
with
getting
that
me
part
to
of
say
the
yes
law.
to your stuff, I know.
But I'll make a small pitch. I won't take up a lot of your time today. We could discuss that at the hearing. But if the board recalls, when I was here last time, I'm going to call it the flood regulations in the town, the floodplain management regulations in the town. One of the section talks about when you're in that zone, you have to go to the planning board, and the planning board has to look at the lots to see if you've flood-proofed them. Right. Which basically means, in this case, raising them up above the flood elevation. Again, these are two existing lots, long-standing subdivisions, been there forever. Okay. We have no problem with that, and we can go to the planning board and actually start this whole process with the planning board. We have a design to raise the lots up above the flood elevation. However, there's also another section of that code, of that portion of the code, that says the roads coming in, the access roads to those lots, also should be above the flood elevation. That's something we can't do. There's an existing town road. There's actually two town roads that get access to those lots. There's water, there's sewer, there's pavement, there's drainage on it. We have no control over that. So there's nothing done to change the elevation on those. So our application is for relief from this board for that portion of the code. Not the whole overlay district, just the idea that to give us relief from the section of the code that says if the roadways are also in the flood, below the flood elevation, you can't even get in front of the planning board. So that's the section that we're looking for relief from. If the board was to grant that, we still have to go back to the planning board. We still have to review the site plans for the lots themselves, for the buildings on these lots. These lots are already subdivided, just to be clear about that again. So, and the last thing I'll say without taking up too much time, because this gets more into the lawyer end of it too, I do believe there's a section of the code that allows this board to waive any of the floodplain regulations.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I disagree. We may disagree with what the result is of that.
Okay, okay.
I think-
So I do think that this is within the purview of the board. I do think it's a dimensional requirement, not unlike the idea of saying you have to be 100 feet from a intersection, or the garage has to be 50 feet off the property line. It's dimensional. It's not use, it's a dimensional regulation. And that's something that the board can, in my opinion, it's a
Do you
dimensional
want to
regulation.
memorialize the exchange, or at least your portion of
Yes.
the exchange to me, and I'll just distribute that, or
That
so
would be
it's not
fine.
going out.
I was going to
maybe-
suggest that I could do that, yes.
Yeah, because I don't want to forward what our correspondence. Just if you want to put it on letterhead, and I'll just forward it over.
Sure, I could do
Sort of
that.
cleaned up a little bit.
Very good, very
Yeah.
good. So, all right, so again, but
We're
for-
close. I agree with most of what you said.
Okay, good. We'll get you over there. Sure, we'll get you across that finish line. So, all right, so again, again, the purposes for tonight is I'd like to get the date set for the public hearing so that
Sure.
we can move forward at that point.
I would recommend to the board at this point, I think there's I think his applicant's assessment of procedurally about getting here and the ability for you to contemplate this and the public to hear it is valid, and I would recommend that you set this down, if the board wants to, set it down for public hearing on the 15th of April, allowing applicant to make the rounds as necessary. I think we already started with the name stuff based on where this may head. Should just contact, assuming they go forward with it, just contact Grace. But that would be my recommendation. I see no reason that the public shouldn't hear it, and that a vote shouldn't be taken on it at some point. I do believe that they have the right to be here. So, that's my opinion. Is there any, I see some, so I see some looks, right? So go ahead.
Well, it kind of looks like when we have people on roads that aren't real roads and.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot lately, right?
Yes, we've seen a lot.
Paper
So
roads
the
and.
road, when they made that rule, the road has to be above whatever the floodplain is.
Mm.
I presume that's, well, maybe people can get to their houses in case of a flood, but also that emergency vehicles can get there without the road being flooded at that point. Is that what that's for? If it
I
is,
mean,
it's
that's-
not our choice to change that, then it becomes a safety issue, right?
Well, and that's pretty, I mean, that's somewhat of a loaded question. I would say certainly
Well,
that that's one of
okay,
the
take it
main,
back then.
main reasons that would be there. I'm not an engineer, but from an attorney's perspective, yes, I would say that's chief among the reasons, but I can't answer that. That's more of a frank question, or the engineer or applicant getting an opinion from an engineer. But I could ask Frank or Sean on that. I mean, that's a fair question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious, if you raise the ground height of a current floodplain, where does the water go in the future?
That I can't answer. I can give you an engineer's opinion about that. I also have an engineer degree too.
Oh,
But
all right,
the
one
answer
upper.
about that is that the amount of fill
They're
for
like that.
these lots, it's inconsequential to the area to the flood area that these lots are located in.
Well, it's shale, right?
It would have to be shale, it have to be, stable, so, yeah.
No, I mean, what's underneath the ground in Honest
it's
Estates is
a-
shale. It was dynamited, I think, prior to the building of the.
Could be, could
Yeah,
be.
there's some there.
Well, you
for
mentioned
sure.
it was there, it was
Yeah.
been there forever, but realistically, it was dynamited and.
Well, the development's not been there forever, but
Well,
yes.
right, that's what I meant,
Yeah,
so it's been there
yeah.
forever. So,
That is a consideration for when the planning board looks at this, that, is the amount of fill you're putting in to raise these up above the flood elevation, does that affect the floodplain itself? In this case, it's not going to.
It is a consideration. I think what, if I can translate here, I think what you're heading towards is environmental impacts and some of the 5 questions that will be adopted. So if you want to maybe hit the 5 points and that advocacy letter back to me, because that's gonna be the next thing. I think that's what's being hinted at. What you have to deal with, the planning board, is, different than what you're dealing with here. So, anyway, that would be, I think, a good way to attack it.
I'll submit a letter to the board.
Yeah.
Highlighting the points of the application. I'll go through the 5 criteria, and I'll
That'd be great.
give my opinion about how I do believe the board can act
Okay.
on this.
I think that would help, and then, and if there's anything from the board that as always, think of something after this, because this is somewhat of a unique one. It's,
I'm wondering if it wouldn't make sense for us to have Sean here for this next.
sure,
public
I'm,
hearing.
All
Because
for it.
I think otherwise we're hearing a case with, we're only hearing one side technically, and I think we might need a little bit more assistance to understand.
I have no problem with that. I think that's a reasonable idea. I don't want to be outnumbered again by one person somehow. I've got 2 degrees, but, all right.
But just the question again is that the roads are below the floodplain line, which, because the roads are essentially in opposite.
They're already in operation, so you'd be trying to raise a road that's in operation already.
But the idea that because the roads are in operation and are below the floodplain lines, you'd like that to then apply to the lots, essentially?
He doesn't want to have to raise the road to build the lots, which would be necessary based on the order of the roads are already in, the lots aren't in. So it's backwards.
Building, I got you.
Right, so, but how you're gonna raise existing roads when there's already infrastructure built around it, it's so they need a variance to be down there.
As
Yeah,
well as
that
other
makes more
houses,
sense.
as well as other existing houses are there too, along the.
That's for sure.
Well,
But-
I mean, I think that's the basis of his argument,
Yeah.
is that theoretically, he's saying it's already done by these houses over here.
Right, if you look at the roads like as their own,
But
as their
not
own
a-
issue, is the building on the lots, has that been approved?
Well, the lots have been approved, they're part of the subdivision.
Right,
That's how they were for sale.
but would they need then the same similar like flood, like variance to build on those lots still?
No, these are two lots that aren't not built on. There's lots that are bookended basically. You can take a ride out there to see, because it's a pretty. I don't want anything come out that sounds for or against.
Yes.
So I would say take a ride out there, because it's a visually. I think you'll understand it easier.
It is, the code section in my mind is a bit confusing, because if the roadway was above the flood elevation, I wouldn't even be here. I go to the planning board,
Yeah.
and the planning board can, well, instead of the building inspectors just giving the permit, the planning board has to look at it and say, yes, you have a site plan that raises the house elevation above the flood
Got
elevation. And I wouldn't even have to be here. The problem comes that there's another section right in that same section, but another line that says, but if the road is below the flood elevation, you can't even get to the planning board.
Understood.
So that's why it's here, right? And that's why I believe that they can be here. But if applied in the manner that I believe I'm concerned about the unknowns. I don't know. I didn't go through every approved lot that's not built upon, that's in a floodplain area, to see if the precedent would kick out to 30, 60. So
No, that's how.
that's telling council to do that for
The
us.
subsequent document explained the fact that the slabs for the houses are gonna be above the floodplain, right? That's why.
Yes.
But that's what you do with the planning board, but it's
That's
like,
the
you know,
thing.
and
It's
it's,
the road that's-
because the code is forcing them here first.
Yep.
And which I agree, it puts you here first, because, it's a bit of a, kind of a tail wagging the dog part, but, so
And
the unknown is frightening
Right.
in a precedential area,
Yeah.
so that's
And the
where.
last part about it is that without the relief, the lots have no value.
Right.
They're totally useless then.
Understood,
Yeah.
understood.
You didn't sound too.
Well, I mean, it's like there's an element of, you buy it with knowing
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
element where you have to
Yeah.
contend with. the
But I'm
local
talking from a
code.
practical point of view.
For sure,
that
for sure.
there's-
And
Okay.
these lots have always been in the ownership of, I didn't finish it.
Oh, yeah,
They've always been owned by Harness Estates, right? So they didn't sell it to anybody yet. Harness Estates itself, the entity, has owned these lots since the beginning of the.
I'm sitting here right now, I don't know how long they've owned the lots.
And Grace, you can confirm this, but, and this isn't, this is more like being from Goshen, but I believe they've been turned over a couple times.
No, this is.
This one's new? These
no,
ones are new?
Yeah, no, these have been sold.
Okay, yeah.
It says Harness Estates because that's what they named the project, so
Okay.
that's what we name it, but,
So we don't have an
in
owner
fact,
of
this
actually
is,
the
I
properties.
think this is the second application I've taken since I've been here, and
Yeah.
I've only been here 2.5 years.
So who's the entity that owns the property? Should we have an entity that owns the properties as listed here, other than
It
just the
is,
address and Harness Estate?
It's my client, that I believe is the ownership right now. No, wait a minute now, I will say there is,
It's an LLC,
I just never saw it not, in
Yep.
terms of I've never seen it not named by the owner
It
of.
might be in the application.
there is a name in the application, it's
Yeah.
owned by an individual.
Yeah, it's right, they put the business name and then there's the developer's name.
Got it, okay.
The owner is Olympia Rentco.
Oh, okay. I see.
Rentco, I may be saying it wrong.
Say that one more time? Olympia what?
It's in the
It's
it's
in
in
the
the
application,
application.
but,
Underneath, it'll be underneath the business name in the pro forma.
RYMKO.
Okay.
It's in the actual,
Sorry, I thought these were still
DBA
owned by
application.
No,
I can
no,
the
always cite it to
developer
you.
from 30 years ago.
yeah.
Okay.
So, is everybody available on the 15th before that even gets contemplated? Sam, Tom, are you guys available on the 15th? We're gonna look to that potentially.
I believe I am.
Oh, I don't know any reason not to, right?
Yeah. I'm around.
Okay.
Unless I'm doing my taxes.
It's tax day.
No, I'll be
It's sure to be done by then.
Anything further you want to add, Chris? No?
No, not this time.
So, make a motion to set a public hearing for April 15th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At 7:30.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
very good.
Thanks,
Very good.
be in touch,
Bye-bye.
all right?
Do you want the
Thanks.
correspondence in hard copy, or do you want to email? From me?
Email is fine for me. I don't know about the rest of it.
Which document?
The correspondence document.
Oh.
The intended correspondence advocacy letter that's coming down the pipeline. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
You just email it,
Yep.
yeah, thank you. And then I'll get this to-
Motion to close the meeting?
Seconded.
Slow down.
Post it.
Those things really need to come from the chair.
What's that?
Let's just, I don't mean to be controlling, but I just want to
No,
make sure that
that's fine.
we've concluded all our stuff. So, is there anything else on the agenda we need to talk about?
So
for-
we have a new application for the next meeting, along with your 2 continued public hearings.
Is that just an initial,
Just came in
Yeah,
yesterday.
initially.
okay.
It's an interpretation, so I have not gone through this, and I'll talk to Frank, because these are always unique, you know. Definitely want Frank here for
Yeah.
that. And then I'll let Sean know just about the other one as well.
Okay.
This lays out, you know, I've worked with this firm before, and you can see that they lay out right out of the gate where they think their, you know, the code part is and where it factors, and try to simplify it for you, at least from their advocacy.
Okay. And, again, this is just an initial
Yep.
presentation?
It literally just came into my office,
So
so,
that's-
yeah.
So if
Okay.
they're ready for the first, I would say get it on the first. If they're not ready, then they can go on the 15th. We're not stacked too heavy.
Right.
They did ask
So-
me to be on the 1st if they could.
No.
If you approved it, it was up to you.
I-
It's up to you.
I'm okay with that. We don't have, I mean, we have the,
Yeah, we have the 2 public
Yeah, there are
hearings
2
that are
public hearings
basically,
and that, so
we're
we-
waiting on the 239 and in case anything else comes out, but those are, I mean, you never know, but they seem to be wrapped up, other than the 239 coming back with stuff that, or your question that was sitting out there.
yeah, okay. All right, and I'm, do we need to make a motion to put that on the agenda, or is it, we can just?
No.
Yeah, I think it just goes on,
Yeah, just put it
everybody's
on
good
there.
with it, yeah.
All right, good. So, any other questions from anybody up
I
here?
just would encourage you guys to take a ride out to Gumwood. You know, there's only about half the time I tell you guys there's a visual, and you seem to do it anyway, and I'm not suggesting that others aren't. But this is a particular area that it helps. It helps when you go out there and see the real deal. That would be my only comment, last comment. Just trying to see if James is gonna start throwing daggers at me for talking. It's time to close the meeting.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Okay, so unless there's any other comments or questions, do we have a motion to close the hearing?
I make a motion to close
Now he
tonight's
does,
meeting.
now he does.
Nope. Seconded.
Seconded by Sam. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
He was absolutely correct.